Hey everybody, it's Jeff, and this is a recap of today's workbench, which was titled Spotify Now Playing in Menu Bar. My goal is to basically make a menu bar icon and some text that basically scrolls what's now playing in Spotify. And this is done both as a feature to my Twitch stream as well as an exercise trying to, you could do something like this using Electron. I did all that work doing on Electron, de-exposing Electron APIs to Go, and that was a really good exercise with, getting schemas and generating clients and getting that kind of communication between Go and JavaScript working. But I also kind of felt like a lot of Electron I'm not really going to be using, and it's such a kind of big heavyweight thing to have for something that you're not actually using, like it's Chrome for making graphical user interfaces. You're using it to like show dialogues and open, kind of get to system level stuff. And even though it's cross-platform, that does mean that it prevents you from getting at some of the OS X specific APIs that are really cool, especially for extensions and stuff like that, right? Making new things that can go on whatever this is, and all these other kinds of extensions that you can do for OS X. And I figure, I'm not going to be able to debug stuff on Windows that much because I don't want to use Windows, so I might as well focus on OS X. So all this led me to thinking about how I can start exposing some of the Apple developer APIs, Cocoa and AppKit and all of that kind of stuff, and kind of do the same thing with Electron, but do it for those APIs so that you can then, and again, not just script in Go, but script in any language that we write qRPC for. And one of the things that I discovered a long time ago is the fairly recent addition to Apple's automation stuff, because they have their what is it called, JavaScript, or their whole system is called you're probably familiar with AppleScript, but that's kind of the one way of looking into their open scripting architecture, and that's a little separate from their scripting bridge stuff, which people use to create bindings similar to AppleScript in other languages like in Ruby and Python, by basically using all the AppleScript dictionaries as a schema, which is great. We got a schema for all these applications. Then you can do AppleScripty things. Well, it turns out they recently added native support for JavaScript, and so you can just tell OSA script that you want to run some kind of the AppleScript open scripting environment, but run JavaScript. So it's called JXA, and it's fairly recent, and not many people, almost nobody is using it, but there are some people that are documenting how to use it. This is one of the few resources that talks about we can showing you some of the basic functions, displaying alerts and doing prompts and confirms, and this is already pretty amazing to be able to, these basic things, things that you didn't get with some of the defaults of Electron, like having multiple selections and choosing from a list and stuff like that. And then, of course, you get to do all the stuff that you'd normally do with other applications, being able to script iTunes or Spotify or whatever things that expose things to their scripting bridge, to the scripting environment, which is most applications. So you can use them in a way that's a lot easier than the, AppleScript, whatever. It makes a little bit more sense in how you can script things. But the coolest thing is they have this real-time bridge to Objective-C. So you can actually dynamically start using Objective-C frameworks from this JavaScript environment, you can basically call arbitrary libraries and basically use most of Cocoa and any other library. You dynamically import them, and then you can call kind of any object in that namespace. And there's this interesting, like, you have to convert function calls to a different name, and certain things don't. If a method doesn't have arguments, you don't call it with params. It's a property. It's really weird. Like this alloc call, right? You'd think that'd be a method, but you don't. So it's got a lot of interesting weirdness, but you can pretty much use all the API. And so they've basically done all that work of bridging it and making it work in JavaScript, which I was thinking of doing myself in a way. They've already done that, and now I can take this environment and then re-expose it in time to the QRPC stuff and being able to use it from other environments, and then maybe create abstractions that are similar to Electron for creating menu items and stuff like that. So anyway, what did we do today? What I'm going to show you is not that impressive, depending on what you think. But I made a script that if I run, I get this window and a button that I can click that calls out to clicked. Now this is done. This is written in JavaScript, and it's set up to basically run as through OSA script. And normally, you would use the standard. I don't even really use this. You'd use the standard API that it has in its environment to do stuff with AppleScript and other applications and do that high-level stuff. Well, what I was trying to figure out how to do is use the Objective-C bridge to make windows and start calling stuff in Cocoa. And I found some examples that do stuff like make a window show up. The problem is, and this is what I spent a lot of time in, they were all assuming that you're using the script editor. So what happens when you use script editor is when you save something here, it will when all the documentation that people have found for making applications like Cocoa stuff, they say use script editor, save it as an application, and check this stay open after run handler. And then when you save it, it doesn't give you a normal script. It gives you basically a whole app bundle, and then the script inside it is compiled, so you can't even really work with it because it's kind of the compiled script format. And then it's just this kind of big hassle to run it because all these other resources, whatever, you have to call open, right? There's no way to just call script. What I wanted was that, but from a single file, right? So being able to do this. The problem was if I were to make a window, and this is where that continue running for the application, because it's set up like that, it doesn't quit immediately. So when I was making this window before and I run the script, it wouldn't show anything because the program was done. And if I tried to add something like either a sleep or the built-in delay, which is their sleep, it would just freeze the thread. And so, I don't think it was able to render any windows or anything like that. So after a while, I finally found out that I think kind of helped with the direction of some people that had joined chat. Diz TV made me realize that I needed to make an NS application because it's kind of handling all of that for us in this environment. But I guess it wasn't, I don't know. So I made the application, and I even made an app delegate and all this stuff, but it still wasn't, for some reason, if you run the app then it runs indefinitely, it blocks. but the problem was then the window wasn't showing up, and the only way the window would show up is if I added a display alert, you know, do a pop-up. Oh, and that's not going to run until whatever. And I commented that out. Right. If I didn't display this dialog, the window would not show up. And so it took me a while, but I finally found some people that do minimal app, because most of the information on doing a Cocoa application, they use the template, right? And they use the nib editor to like make windows and stuff like that. So you don't really have to set up your application. Luckily, I found some people that are into doing like, you know, what is the bare minimum program. And some of the things that I missed were this activation policy needs to be set in order for it to get a menu and show up in the dock and all this stuff. So I set that. And that basically fixed it and made it work, and the window showed up. And then, you know, from there, and there was some other stuff along the way, but I think I kind of know enough quirks now, right, and how I can make delegates to handle callbacks, that I can on Thursday hopefully actually start making menu items and start actually doing this Spotify Now Playing thing. So that's it. I think this is pretty cool, and nobody else is really doing anything like this. So hopefully you can continue to follow along, and we'll see where this goes. All right, see ya.